Howdy, folks. I'm Mark. Thank you for joining me for this short talk about video games and you listen to Quick Play. So let's get right into it. First of all, Happy New Year. It's the first day of 2025, and I hope that you're looking forward to this year just as I am. But before we get too far ahead here, we have one last chunk of 2024 to take care of. Because if you've been around, you are probably aware of Metacritic Golf, a little game that we play where you all guess the ultimate Metacritic scores of a handful of major games coming out this year. Been taking it one quarter at a time, and participants gave their guesses of 12 selected games from that quarter. Only the best nine are counted. That's also to add a buffer in case any games get delayed. And in Q4 of 2024, we did have one, just never kind of showed up. Metal Gear Solid Delta, so that means everyone here had their worst two scores dropped. So we'll look at those scores, see where everyone landed. But aside from this being just a good old time, we'll discuss the winners of Q4 and the whole year overall. It is nice to look back on the major releases of the quarter, because of course it is fun to think about the games that have come out, but it's even more interesting, I think, to remember what we expected of them and if they lived up to those expectations or surpassed them. And as we go along, also shout out the closest guesses for each game. And if you'd like to follow along with a visual aid, there's a link to some Google Slides in the description of this podcast. Or you may already be watching on YouTube, in which case you don't have to go anywhere. I'm throwing up the slides for you as we go, so don't you worry. Come join us on YouTube if you're just listening to it, or do both. I love that. But now we'll work through the 11 games chronologically, plus a few tangents along the way of games that weren't scored. So this quarter we had 9 participants. Our collective average guess of the 11 games that came out among the 9 of us came out to 83.1. The average Metacritic score for these 11 games was 79.4. So we were off a little bit this time, but just overall, not as great a quarter as we thought it would be, by about 4 points. Well, we're starting out here with Neva, came out October 15th to an 86. If you never heard of it, it's a quieter indie launch from the team that brought you Grease or Gree, whatever you want to go with. It's got that same striking visual style that Gree had, but this time with combat. Presumably, it's got another story that'll make you cry, but I enjoyed Gree and have my eye on this for later on. It did do a good bit better than we thought. At an 86 versus an 80 that we guess on average. Our average was brought down a good bit by one faithless guess of it coming in at a 52, and maybe that was a typo. But 3 people were just one away, being Landry Smith, Josh, Amazed by Grace, and yours truly, Mark Erickson. Next up, we have Super Mario Party Jamboree. Came out October 17th to an 82. It's a Mario Party game that promised a Mario Party. It seems like it delivered that. That was after Mario Party Superstars really reinstilled some goodwill in this franchise. There was a bit more hope for this one, and a handful of reviewers I think saw this as the best Mario Party yet. I did think it was pretty hilarious how often the marketing drove home that it was the biggest Mario Party yet, and that after that was such a criticism of the past 2 installments. I would certainly love to play this, but I would talk to a few guys like Jake and Landry about how none of us really are in this stage of life anymore where buying a Mario Party makes sense for us. But altogether, we were right on the money at 82, an average guess. No individual person got it exactly right, but the closest, obviously, us together as a collective average, got it just right. But I was one away at an 83. Next up, we have Call of Duty Black Ops 6, released October 25th, 2024, to an 83. This was a highly anticipated Call of Duty, being the first Call of Duty under Microsoft-owned Activision. I think that's true. It did fairly well for itself. People seem to be enjoying it. Came in at a respectable 83, which is one above what we collectively guessed at 82. So it's doing fairly well and kind of did about what we expected. One person got it exactly right, which is Josh, Amazed by Grace 86, was right on the money at 83. Next up, we have Life is Strange Double Exposure. Came out October 29th to a 73. Quarter four of 2024 was a little weird because it was a little bit quiet. So like having to include Life is Strange here as one of these games. They keep on firing out the games in this series. It feels like they tend to do fairly well. So we ended up guessing a little too high collectively at a 78. Ended up coming in a little good bit lower there, but two people knew exactly what we were looking at, and that was Landry Smith and Nick Porch. Both got it exactly right at 73. And everyone else guessed a little bit too high. Next up, we have Dragon Age The Veilguard, released on Halloween night, Halloween day, whatever, October 31st, coming out to an 82. This long anticipated Dragon Age game had a pretty rocky marketing cycle. 82 is actually a good bit higher than the discourse would have you think. I was certainly surprised looking back at this. It sounds like the writing and the mission structure is very much a mixed bag, but I do know a few people who are loving their time with Veilguard. We did expect a good bit more from Dragon Age, of course. We collectively guessed it'd come in at 86. One person got it exactly right. That was Billy Cox, was dead on right there. That wraps out October, but before we go into November, I wanted to talk about a few games that did release as well. Two pretty significant ones that you might be thinking, what happened to these? We had Silent Hill 2 Remake, came out October 8th to an 86, and Metaphor ReFantasio came out October 11th to a 94. That's massive. Both of those just were, I was too late in sending this out, so they would have been included, of course. These are big deals, but it didn't feel right to include them because I think I sent this out like second week of October. So my bad. But both pretty heavy hitters. Metaphor ReFantasio, of course, obviously a game of the year contender. People are loving that. Some other games we want to shout out. Backyard Baseball 97. That's just kind of a little what I'm excited about. Came out October 10th. There's no Metacritic score for that one, but I am certainly looking forward to Backyard Baseball 2001. That's what I grew up on, so I have my eye on that when it releases. Batman Arkham Shadow, the VR game, also the VR game of the year, according to the Game Awards, came out October 22nd to an 84. Sonic X, Sonic Times, Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, whatever you want to call it, came out October 25th to an 80. Here's some high praise about that. And then the Pokemon trading card game Pocket came out October 30th to a 75. I think it's worth more than that. I'll just enjoy my time with it being free and everything. It's a good time. But that wraps up October. Moving on into November. We have first off Mario and Luigi Brothership came out November the 7th to a 77. And this was supposed to be the triumphant return of a beloved RPG series, but wasn't quite that. 77 isn't as low as I feel like the discourse has been. But I also have IGN's 5 out of 10 score in my head. I do like Logan Plant, the reviewer, and I trust his judgment. I don't think this was really one I was really going to get into myself, but it is a disappointment for people who love that series. It did take a lot of us by surprise. We collectively guessed an 86, 9 points above that 77, and all of us guessed higher than 77. One person did guess a 78, a little more close there, and that was Alex Castellanos, just one away. Next up, we have Dragon Quest 3, the HD 2D, the Hawk D 2D. Stop joking. Next up, we have Dragon Quest 3, the HD 2D remake, came out November the 14th to an 84. A lot of promise for this one, following a few Bravely Defaults and a few Octopath Travelers and whatnots using this style. Dragon Quest 3 is a huge deal. This was stealthily a high-profile remake. It sounds like it's your favorite RPG's favorite RPG, and those that love this game, love this remake. Doesn't seem like it's making huge strides into expanding its audience. to the rest of us normies. An 84 is great, not as high as we expected at an 87. None of us were exactly right, but weirdly, what did get exactly right is my control entry, which was that takes the average guess of all guesses for all games just across the board. That was an 84 for this quarter. So if you just take the average of every single guess made over every single game, it comes out 84. And sure enough, as an 84, one person, actual person, was one away, and that was Alex Castellanos once again. Next up, we move on to Lego Horizon Adventures. This is the first of a 1-2 punch to a lot of our total scores. This came out November 14th to a 70. This was a surprising collaboration between two fairly successful IPs. Of course, Lego is a much bigger deal, but seemed like they could produce something good here. It's definitely the best looking Lego game we've seen. We had high hopes as a group. They were far too high. We collectively guessed an 84, good 14 points above 70. The closest technical entry to this was using Fantasy Critics predictive points, which still guessed 9 points higher than what you would get here. The closest actual person guessed an 81, still 11 points above the 70, but that was Alex Castellanos, third time here. Next up, moving on to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, released November 19th to a rough start and landed at a 77. This one was a bummer. 77 even seems high given the game's really rough and buggy launch. Things seem a bit more stable now. And what I hear is that the simulation itself is supposedly great, but it sounds like the mission structure is a bit lacking, which was all part of the billing of its original announcement. This was actually my first round pick for Fantasy Critic this year, and it was my worst performing game. So that was a bummer. A lot lower than what we all expected. We collectively guessed a 90. I think that's the highest average guess for any of these games here. The closest guesser was 7 away. That was Nick Porch. Moving on now to Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. It came out on November 20th, finally, to a 73. This is a long delayed game due to the invasion of Ukraine. 73 is good, not really splash making. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. We all expected a little more on it. We had a collective guess of 82. The closest shot was a 76 from Nate McKeever. Well done. Wrapping up November here, a few other games that came out. Not a whole lot here. We had Slitterhead. I hated saying that. Came out November 8th to a 62. Rough stuff there. And then Rise of the Golden Idol, sequel to Case of the Golden Idol, came out November 12th to an 85. Finally, now moving on into December. Only one game here to talk about, and that was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Came out December 9th to an 86. This was a bit of a surprise hit, while faith in Microsoft and Xbox has been an all-time low. That's a pretty exciting success, though far from perfect. I think the first-person perspective was definitely a surprising approach, but it seemed to work well, given how puzzle-focused this seems to be. And there are terms like immersive sim get tossed around a lot. I definitely have my eye on this one, though I don't have a great way of playing it without an Xbox now. But I still would love to get my hands on it. Our closest shots here were Jake Martin and Isaac the Sojourner were each one away. Some other games that came out in December I want to mention briefly was Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete, came out December 3rd. This is just a full collection of the mobile game with no more microtransactions, just one big thing after Pocket Camp itself went away. There's no Metacritic score for this one, but the original Pocket Camp does have a 72 as of November 17th. Anton Blast came out December 3rd as well at an 88. And then Marvel Rivals came out December 6th to a 72, which was lower than I would have thought. I feel like there's been a lot of talk about this one. And then, as a final bonus question in this quarter, each participant was asked, will Hollow Knight Silksong get released this year in 2024? 7 people said no, 2 said yes, and the majority was correct. Those 7 all got 5 points deducted from their final score. including Landry Smith, Isaac the Sojourner, Billy Cox, Josh, Amazed by Grace 86, Nate McKeever, Nicholas Porch, and me, Mark Erickson. Granted, there is still time. I'm recording this on the 29th, but I guess I'll have to edit it in case Hollow Knight does get released between now and, I guess, Tuesday. That would be pretty wild. And with that, let's now announce our winners for quarter 4, 2024. We have in third place, it's dear old me at 26 points. Second place, Landry Smith returns to the podium, also at 26 points, but he completed the form before I did. So tie goes to the runner. And of course, he did have a better total score than me, so it's fitting. And in first place for Q4, you have Nate McKeever with 23 points. Well done, Nate. Funny enough, I don't want to take away from Nate's victory here, but Nate shares first place spot with the control entry, which, like I mentioned previously, that's the average of every guess for every game. And that was an 84. So use that guess to guess every game. And turns out guessing 84 for every game could be a good strategy, although that hasn't really worked that well in other quarters, but who knows? Rounding out the rest of the standings, we have once again in first place Nate McKeever, second place Landry Smith, third place Mark Erickson, that's me, fourth place Alex Castellanos, fifth place Billy Cox, sixth place Isaac the Sojourner, seventh place was Jake Martin, eighth place was Josh Amazed by Grace, and ninth place was Nick Porch. Well done, you all. Thank you for participating. But of course, before we go, we do need to announce a final World Championship winner for the whole year. This is the 9 folks here who all participated in quarter 4 are the 9 folks who participated in every quarter. So we're tallying up all their final scores from all 4 quarters for a full year of Metacritic Golf. And so, without further ado, the drum roll, please. We have in third place with 114 total points is yours truly, Mark Erickson. In second place with 103 total points, you have Landry Smith. Well done in second place. And finally, in first place with a nice and tidy 100 points even. He's been sneakily consistent all year, and he's had this coming. It's Alex Castellanos. Well done, Alex. You killed it. Good job. Landry was close there. I gave you one for your money, but Alex, you came out on top. Well done. And then let's run down the final standings for everyone, the rest of these 9 guys. First place, Alex Castellanos. Second place was Landry Smith. Third place was Mark Erickson. Fourth place was Nate McKeever. Fifth place was Billy Cox. Sixth place was Isaac Sojourner. Seventh, we have Jake Martin. Eighth, we have Nick Porch. And ninth, we have Josh Amazed by Grace. Guys, thank you all for doing this. This is made for some fun content. I hope it was fun for you. I apologize if it is a bummer to be at the low end there, but it's all fun and games. So it's good to just have this as a whole experiment. So thank you for doing this. But of course, now before we go, 2025 is here. We're running it back. We're doing it again with a twist. Instead of Metacritic Golf this year, it is Metacritic Kart. Honestly, it'll just kind of work the same. On your end, there's a list of games coming out in quarter 1 of 2025, and you'll guess what the final Metacritic score will be for each of those. But the scoring will be a tad different. Whoever is closest to the final score will come in first and be awarded a set number of points like you would in Mario Kart or Formula One. And it'll work down the line from there for second, third, fourth, and so on. This is regardless of how close you actually are to the real score, just as long as you're the closest. I don't really know how many points will be awarded for each placement. That will depend on how many participants we have. But obviously, the closer you are, the more points you get, and the highest this time wins. If there's a tie, I'll figure out where the same score, you'll get the same score and whatever. It does behoove you to get your scores in early, because if there is a tie, I'll give one little extra bonus point to the person who submitted their scores earlier. So go for that and get your scores in. That is ready to go. And so the link is in the description here. Get your answers in before reviews go up for Ender Magnolia, which could be as early as January 15th. That game does release January 22nd. So it could be, you may even have to listen to 22nd, who even knows. But yeah, thanks to you all for participating in 2024. come join us again for 2025. It'll be a great time. We'll figure out something special too. I'll keep track of the rest of the quarters, all 4 quarters, and do another world championship. And now, finally, the final things to do here. What am I playing? I bought UFO 50 with some Christmas money. I'm checking that out. Thank you all for listening in. You can follow us on the major podcasting services or on YouTube. You can push all the good buttons if you enjoyed your time and find us on the proper socials at Quick Play Pod and let us know what's been your favorite game of Q4 of 2024. Happy New Year. Thanks for being here. We're looking forward to this year coming up. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks. Bye.